I could stay like this, forever following you. Just don't get too far, and I'll
Good morning and welcome to episode 16. This morning we look ahead to week 4. We get an update on the supervisor allocations. The module leaders have been in touch to give me some highlights into next week. We have a look at the tweet of the week from Professor Stuart Phillips. We take some questions and provide some answers in the chat. Stay tuned to find out more. Guys, good morning. Welcome to episode 16. Lots to get through this morning, and hopefully you guys have got some questions lined up for me as well. I'd just like to, before we carry on, I'd like to say hello to, and good morning to Magdalena. We've got Madalena, Maddie, we've got Rebecca, Harry, and we've also got Evie, who have tuned in this morning and said hello. If there's anyone who is lurking in the background who has not said hello on the chat, please do make sure that you make yourself known. Now, we're on a bit of a back foot again this morning. Unfortunately, the software that I use to run the stream needs an update. The university, in its infinite wisdom, does not allow me to update my own computer, so I have to ask an adult to do that for me. So we're back to the old format. It arguably runs better, if I'm honest, but it just limits me on adding the chat into the video. But nevertheless, I have the chat open in the background so I can see you. Vicky, good morning. Are you joining us from work this morning? If so, keep it on the down low so the boss doesn't see you. Ted, I've heard some good news from you this week, which we're going to find out in the module updates. But good to see you this morning, guys. As I've said in the chat early this morning, do you know what, Maddie? The video could well be stuttering just because of the demands I'm placing on it this morning. But I will switch the view and it will likely settle down. But good to see you all this morning. As I said earlier in the chat, just if any of you've got any questions, please feel free to line them up. It could be on anything, any module, anything to do with the course, anything that's going on in the big wider world of sports nutrition. Get your questions submitted and I can try and answer them as we go along. Now, let me just get my slides open so that we can move on to the module updates as we move through the chat. Now, thank you for letting me know that the stream is stuttering a bit because I can close a few bits and pieces. Hopefully things will speed up. So let's have a look at what is going on this morning. So as I've said, episode 16, these episodes, I come through every Friday and I just think, where has the last week disappeared to? But we're going to kick it off as we usually do with the module updates, starting with, I believe, advanced performance nutrition. Now, you guys were lucky enough to, I say lucky enough, that's what a ridiculous statement. We had the carbohydrate feeding session this week. We had the opportunity to have a look at some during, and we're yet to have a little look at some of the final evidence on that. So basically, following the stream today, I'll take the opportunity to use the facilities that we've got here at the Wells Street campus, just to record that that top-up content. So Sanjoy wants to meet for a coffee this morning, which is great. So I'm going to do the stream, have a quick coffee with him, catch up and look at some projects and research. Then I'm going to head back over to the studio and we'll get that final session topped up so you've got that content available to you. I've also taken the opportunity to update the readings list. The way that works is that I put a submission into the library to add some content to the reading list. I've added a few of those papers that where the reference was missing or whatever, so that those are available in the reading list so you guys can go and check them out. I will make the feedback form available. I should have done that this morning, didn't get a chance to, but I will make the feedback form available following the carbohydrate session. If there's anything that you guys want to just let me know about how the module is going. It can be nice, it can be negative, it can be all sorts of things. Just let me know what's going on. Now, the formative assessment, I've kind of been sat on my hands a little bit with this, and I kind of need to get going. So what I've done is I've actually reduced the intensity of the formative assessment so that it's a little bit more manageable in the time frame that you guys have got available. So again, following the stream today, this afternoon, once I've recorded the top-up content, I'll make the formative assessment available to you. So this would be an opportunity for you guys to just get a bit of a feel for what this assessment is like and get some feedback so that you can integrate that feedback into your full assessment, one of the assessments for this module. So At the start of next week, the full assessment guideline document will be made available to you as well, so that you can start having a look at what the requirements are for that. So that gives you the rest of semesters. That's 8 weeks to get that done. So you'll have plenty of time to start working the way through that. But what I would say about the formative assessment is just to be sensible about the amount of time that you spend on it. So obviously it's a good opportunity for you to get some feedback on it, but I am going to reduce the time that you've got to do it just so that you guys are not spending crazy amounts of time on the formative assessment. So I've cut down the intensity of it so that it's not quite as big. And I'm also going to give you a decent amount of time to undertake it, but I don't want you guys spending a hell of a lot of time on it. So but have a look at that. That'll be available before I go home today. You can check it out. And again, use it for your benefit. Don't see it as a chore or something that you're being forced to do. See it as something that's actually going to benefit you and your mark that you're going to get on advanced performance nutrition. So you can make all your mistakes in this formative assessment. You'll get the opportunity to get some feedback, and then we can go through from there. Now, just to finish up on advanced performance nutrition, I've noticed that a few of you have made some comments in the chat, so I'll just follow up on those. But just to look ahead, now we've got Dr. Glenn Davison, who's a senior lecturer from the University of Kent, coming in talking to us about how we can modulate and utilize different nutritional techniques to look and improve and enhance immune function. Now, I know Vicky would have sat in on this session last year, as would have Dana and Francesca. So do take the opportunity, and Angie for that matter, but do take the opportunity to ask them any questions if you see them in the next week or so. If you guys have got any insight as to what the session's like, do let them, your peers, know in the chat. Good session, well worth looking into. Now, as with the externals, it's not always practical to get the slides that they're actually going to present ahead of the session. So I've provided Glenn's slides on Blackboard that he presented last year. I will be honest and say I doubt it's going to change too much from there. But again, Glenn will have been taking the opportunity to just update those slides ahead of the session before you come in. So take a look at what he's going to present. That's going to be kind of the core kind of backbone, if you like, of what he's going to present. And the likelihood is he will have updated the evidence moving forward. So any questions, get them in on the chat now. But let me just take a look at the chat. No work for Friday. Excellent. Hopefully, can someone just let me know if the video is actually working decently? Everything on my computer says it should be all right. But if it is looking a bit choppy, then let me know and I can try and do something about it. As Magdalena, it's looking a bit splittery, but it sounds all right. As long as you can hear what I'm saying, that's kind of the most important thing, I reckon. When will supervisors be confirmed for projects, please? So I was under the impression that we were all going to be joined up on this. So I know all the GPHN students have got their supervisor allocation. That's because they were released on Wednesday. I have had confirmation from all of the supervisors that they are happy with the students that they've been allocated. And as such, I see no reason as to why we can't get that information released today. So later on, when I'm doing all this follow-up for advanced performance nutrition, I'm going to release the supervisor allocations later on today. So I will do that as an announcement on the Blackboard site. I'll also make sure that it's announced immediately, so you'll get an email that's sent through. Check out who your supervisor is. For most of you, it won't be a surprise. And then we can go through there. It'll be a nice opportunity for you guys to make sure that you know who your supervisor is, who your supervisor has been allocated to, so you can start the conversations about your research projects early, so that there's no surprises down the line. Hopefully that answers that question. Maddie, I wanted to say if it would be possible to upload slides of the lectures in PowerPoint format instead of PDF, as I often content shown in PowerPoint is missing that the PDF version was uploaded. I can tell you from my perspective that is not going to happen from me, as the PowerPoint presentations are my content. So I'm happy to share them in PDF format, but not the PowerPoints. If we did share them in PowerPoints, it would have to be a protected PowerPoint, which is faffy and it's just a barrier to your consumption. Now, I think what my advice would be, Maddie, is that if there's any circumstances or examples of where the slides are not clear, then just get in touch with the module leader and they can update it to make sure that that's reflected. So I do appreciate what you're saying. Sometimes the slides are animated. If they're covered with like a coloured box or something like that, sometimes the data is hidden and not shown. I can think of some of examples in my carbohydrate feeding trial. So for example, when I was talking about the single leg model, I would have had white boxes over the timeline diagram. So again, just let me know where the instances occur. I'll update the PDF so that you guys can see the content correctly. Yeah, I totally get. Maddie's just said there, often that graphs, chart studies are missing in the PDF. Again, let me know. I can update the PDF and then make sure that you guys have got the content that you need. So, and again, I always put references in the slides as well, to sort of encourage you to have a look at the original research project. So you would find the figures and the timeline diagrams from the presentations in there as well. But yes, let me know if I can help. I will certainly do that moving ahead. Okay, let's move it on from advanced performance nutrition. Again, take the opportunity to give some feedback when I provide the link. If you've got any, good and bad is welcome. And similarly, check out the updated content. Again, I'll be checking out who's had a look at that moving ahead into next week. Try and get yourself in a top 5 situation as per Rebecca, as per Evie, as per Sinead. All 3 have been top 5 for all of the Panopto videos sent out. Jimmy, if you're watching, let's try more than 10 to 15 minutes this time. Let's see if we can get a little bit more viewed in there. It'd be great to see some engagement moving forward. So let's move it on. We're going to move on to nutritional assessment with Claire. Now, I had a good chat with Claire this week. Now, before we move on, nutritional assessment, as it's a shared module, I got some insight. Now, it seems like some of the GPHN students are so full of regret about their choice of MSc course that they're tuning into SENstream, which is unheard of. So I'd like to know if there's any GPHN students who are lurking in the background, who are not making themselves known on the chat, that I think you should reveal yourselves now. And similarly, if you're watching not live but afterwards, leave a comment. Let us know what you like about the stream, and it would be good to see. But there's nothing you can do about your course choices now, guys. It is what it will be. So nevertheless, it's good to hear that we've got a bit of cross-course interaction there, and you guys like the stream. But nevertheless, let's look ahead to nutritional assessment. It says week 2 here. Definitely shouldn't say week 2. It should absolutely say week 4. Now, you have a session with Claire next week, which is on Nutritics. Now, Nutritics is the nutritional assessment software that we use at the university. It's a good, high-level, accurate piece of nutritional assessment software, which is why we get you to use it. Now, Claire has insisted here that you guys should be able to access it before you come to the class. So can you make sure that you can? And please get in touch with Claire directly if you are having any issues getting access to Nutritics. And that's key. She's put a list of students on the Blackboard site, which I'm going to try and avoid going on the Blackboard site because it means I have to open a browser and things will start getting a bit weird on my computer. But check it out. She's put out some links. She's put a list of students who haven't had a chance to access it yet. So please make sure. I don't want to see any SEN students on that list. I see predominantly GPHN students. But as we're the better performing course, shall we say, let's make sure that none of our students are on that list. And if you see any of your peers' names on there, please provide them a message which says, come on, guys, you're letting the side down. Let's get it sorted out. So on the joint modules, I want to see every single student outperforming the GPHN students, full stop. Let's make no mistake about that. So then looking again ahead, 24-hour recalls done in week 2. So make sure that you have them with you, yours and your partners as well. I'll be honest and say out of the context of the module, I'm not sure what that means, but hopefully you guys do. If you do have any questions with regards to that, ask them me now and I will pass them on to Claire. She's also provided an update here that you're in room C201, which I suspect is a room change from what you're normally used to. So hopefully you guys are keen and motivated to get involved with Nutritics. Again, let me know in the chat if any of you are thinking of using dietary assessment as part of your research projects. It would be good to get a bit of a handle to find out who exactly is planning on using some form of dietary assessment as part of their project. So let me know. It'd be good to see who's planning on that. Let's move it on though. One quick look at the chat. No questions in the chat. That's absolutely fine. Let's move it on. Assessment of health and fitness. Now, well done to everyone for running a lactate threshold and VO2 max assessment. I know some of the students who expressed an interest in some of the research projects that I'm doing. We will certainly be utilising some of those skills moving ahead. So that's great. Now, I mentioned Ted. Ted's an aerobic animal. 62 mils per kilo per minute on the VO2 max test, an astonishing 18 kilometers an hour. Let yourself down though, didn't you, Ted, by stopping the treadmill, from what I understand. You need to keep those arms nice and tucked in, away from the leads. Don't worry, I've stopped the treadmill multiple times and stopped it on behalf of participants as well, which has always come to a bit of a shock for them. But we've got to keep everyone safe. But a huge effort there. I don't think we've measured a student as high as that, Ted. So you can take that away. If I had the locker scene here, we would get you at the top of the board with your VO2 max score. Again, in the chat, let me know if you've got a VO2 max that is higher than 62 mils per kilo. But yeah, good effort, huge effort actually, and please give Ted a pat on the back when you see him for putting that kind of level of effort in. So that's good. Should set you up well for your half marathon this weekend, which I believe you're going to stagger through. So good luck with that. Next week you'll be looking at the strength and power test, so everyone can get involved. Short tests, so come along, be prepared to see how strong you are. Again, there's a little bit of posturing to be done there. See if you can get one over on your peers. Again, make sure you're wearing appropriate kit for doing that. So no skinny jeans and all the rest of it, because it's just not going to work out. So come prepared to exercise. The final thing that Jane wanted to update here is that you all have your clients for the client fitness testing session. So she's probably provided you with an outline and an overview of who this person is going to be. She will forward further details of their current training and goals when she gets them from the participants. Now, typically these participants that we get in are external people to the university, so it might just take a little bit of time to get that information collected, accurate, so that you can think. Again, if we're drawing parallels between the modules, those kind of the sessions that we do in advanced performance nutrition, where we start to look at the individual as almost like a case study, as a client that you'd be working with. Again, you can use the same sort of skill set that you develop in an advanced performance nutrition and apply it to the assessment of health and fitness module here. You're going to have a client, you need to characterize them, you want to know some interesting things about them, and you need to address their goals, their needs within the session. So try and think in the same ways about how you would try and treat this individual as a client, as this standalone person, and think about how you're going to support the decisions that you're going to make about the interventions you provide for this person, with some good literature and some good sound knowledge as to why you're going to do those things. So again, just an emphasis here from Jane that to just encourage you to book in with Avoni, PhD student, Dr. Brad Elliott's PhD student, who's in the lab using these skills on a day-to-day basis. So she's a great source of knowledge to tap into if you get the opportunity to go and speak to her. So do take advantage of that. Again, any questions, give me a shout in the chat, but let's move it on to the next module. Now we have research methods for health sciences 2. Now, a few of you are asking in my session in advanced performance nutrition as to an update on marks. I passed this on to Teddy. He's made an announcement on the Blackboard site, and he's insisted that they will be available today by 5 p.m. So keep an eye out for that update on the Blackboard site, and just again check out your score, see how you've got on. Looking ahead to next week, you have 2 sessions scheduled for the timetable. I've just noticed some questions in the chat, but I'll come back to them in a second. We have 2 sessions in the schedule for next week. Now, the first session will be on sample size calculations. That will be with Teddy. He's provided you with some readings there. So he's encouraged you to have a little read around those topics. Now, sample size calculations are a bit of a contentious issue within sport and exercise science and nutrition as a whole. So I had a little bit of a look myself. It's a topic which is evolving within sport and exercise nutrition, but don't be afraid to have a little look around the topic, specifically putting in sample size calculation, sport and exercise science, sport and exercise nutrition. There's quite a lot of studies out there which kind of review the topic as a whole. So do take the opportunity to just have a little look around and see what the general consensus is within our field specifically. And it will really help give context to that, because we tend to find ourselves in a field where, you know, we're using smaller sample sizes because we're trying to reduce the variability in our participants by being a bit more selective about who we choose in to take part in the trials. So we reduce our participant variation simply by ensuring that our inclusion criteria states things like, you know, a male or female who's between a particular age range, who's doing a certain amount of training in a specific sport and has been doing that for a given period of time. Those are all good, substantial inclusion criteria, which would reduce the variability of a population. But nevertheless, it does predispose, I mean, there's a tendency for us to choose quite low sample numbers in the grand scheme of things. And what impact does that have from a statistical analysis perspective on whether you'll find something that's significant or not? So it's a key session. You will upskill yourselves in finding out how many participants you would likely want to try and recruit for your studies. And it would also give you a little bit of insight as to the limitations that you might face with regards to recruitment. So if your primary outcome variable states that you're going to recruit 50 people, is that really going to be realistic for your project? And as such, if you know that, can you then think about and analyze your project with that in mind? When you come to the discussion section of your paper, it will really help you to put those findings into context. Just the final update on research methods for health sciences 2 before I head back to the chat and just deal with any questions that you guys have got. So the design study, one other update after that as well. So the design study guidelines and dissertation guidelines will be available on Blackboard very shortly. So some of the senior members of the teaching team, so the course leaders, the module leader, and Liza as well, all met to discuss the dissertation guideline document, just to make sure that everything is up to scratch, that we're all happy with the content of it, to ensure that there's clarity moving forward. So I think that was a fairly successful meeting, actually, that there was a lot of consensus. We drew a lot of, we were happy with the guidance document. So Teddy is going to make that available to you guys very shortly on Blackboard. So when that comes out, read it, because that will answer a lot of questions about, you know, the size of the document, what's expected to be in it, if it says introduction and literature review, what does that actually mean, and how could you go about carrying out that? It gives you some insight as to what's expected in the methodology, how you might want to structure that. Gives you insight as to what the results section is going to look like, your discussion, the types of language, the way that you're going to structure that, the word counts, the referencing style, how big does your font need to be, all of these types of things, the cover page, all of that is covered in the guidance document. So you really want to have that in a place that you know where it is and you've referred to it and you've actually taken the opportunity to read it. And trust me, it will be considered as your Bible moving forward with regards to writing your dissertation. So once it comes out, familiarize yourself with it, and it will be a hugely helpful document, as will the design study document as well. So once they're released, get familiar, get involved. Now, the second session for Research Methods for Health Sciences 2 will be Ethics in Practice. So you had an ethics review session with me in this module on Wednesday, where we talked about the historical context and some application as to what that actually means for you guys when you start considering the ethical considerations for your project. Now, the next step along that line is to really get involved with the VRE system. So the VRE system is the virtual research environment, of which you will have your own account on there. You will probably have never been on it until this point. So we're going to have two distinct sessions, because I feel that there is going to be a cohort of students where the VRE is going to be used in a very particular way, and then there's going to be another cohort of students where it's going to be used in a slightly different way. So Regina is going to run one of those sessions and I'm going to run the other one. So that's the slight difference in the timetable this week. Regina is going to remain in C215, where this session is, whereas I would encourage all of the SEN students to come up to 407 with me, where we're going to run through the VR system separately. Now, I'm going to put an announcement out on Blackboard, but I would really appreciate if you could all bring some form of computing device with you, be it it just needs to have a browser on it. Now, phone's probably not going to be practical for this, but if you have a laptop, if you have an iPad, then please bring it to this session, because we're going to get you to run through the VRE systems alongside me. It's going to be, I tried to book a computer lab, that there was basically no rooms available across the entire university. So, and without crossing campuses, which is not practical, the best I could do is 407. So if you've got your own computing device, bring it with you. And if you don't fear. I will just pair you up with someone who's brought theirs, so that you can both walk through the VRE system together. Now, let's have a look at the chat, because I've ignored you all for a little while. Let's see what has been said. Okay. So Dana, hi, sorry, only just managed to join in. Well, welcome, Dana. Get involved. You can watch the first sort of 10 minutes that you missed later on. Rebecca, I was wondering if the Panopto for Week 3 Advanced Performance Nutrition will be available. It seems like the video is only 2 seconds long. That is deeply disturbing, considering if that content is missing, I may need to go and have a look on the computer. But thank you for letting me know, Rebecca. I will certainly log in onto the computer in that room and just find out where it is. I hope that it isn't missing. In the worst case scenario, I gave a very similar lecture on this last year, so I could always move that from last year's session into this year's. But I will look and see if I can identify the Panopto session moving forwards. And my apologies, I didn't realise that was the case, but thank you for letting me know. Rebecca keen to get herself again into a top 5 situation with regards to minute viewed, and that is encouraging to see. So, any questions with regard to research methods too, let me know. If you don't get your marks, please also let me know, because I can then follow that up. But I've been reassured that they're going to come out by Friday, 5 p.m. Let's move it on. Next module. Oh, we've done all the modules. My apologies. Right, tweet of the week. Let's make it big. So, tweet of the week this week comes from Professor Stuart Phillips. Now, if anyone has followed the protein feeding literature up until this point, Prof. Stu Phillips, McMaster University in Canada is where he hails from. Really nice guy. Spent part of his life living in the UK as well, so he kind of gets British culture, which is refreshing. I've been fortunate enough to have a few beers with Stu every now and again. I've been out for a few meals with him as well. Good friends with one of his postdocs. So, but he's done a podcast here, episode 82 of the Rock Performance Training blog. So if you go to @rock_performance onto their Twitter page, you will see that they have a podcast here, which is a STEM, science, technology, engineer, mathematics talk with Professor Stu Phillips. They looked at and discussed the importance of dietary protein and its role in muscle mass retention. Now, Stu's focus is he's transitioned a bit, moving away from kind of looking at these responses in sport, like post-exercise, so post-resistance exercise in, healthy, young, trained males, and has transitioned into looking at kind of muscle mass retention and the role of nutrition in an aging population, because essentially we have an aging population in the world. More and more people are living for longer and longer. So how can we ensure that the people who are living for longer remain as independent as possible? And a large part of that comes from the ability to retain functional mass so that day-to-day tasks can be maintained with a degree of independence. So Stu talks about that in this blog here and the role that it plays. I would strongly recommend that you take a listen to this. I believe he was recently on the Guru for Performance site as well. So if you go to the SEN Stream YouTube channel, you will see there are some recommended channels on there, of which the Guru Nutrition Performance podcast, I believe, is aired on there as well. If not, just have a look up of Guru Performance and check out their podcast. They have a wealth of different speakers on there. It's quite envious of their podcast selection, actually. But all freely available to listen to. So take an opportunity to have a listen to this one, and just generally get involved with the content that is available to you guys. If anybody else has got any tweets they want to share in the chat, feel free. Stick a link in there. Anything that anyone has come across that you feel your peers would benefit from, then take the opportunity to share that with them right now. That's the updates from me, folks. I think we'll take the opportunity to just have a little look at the chat. Now would be your opportunity, guys, to just get some questions in there as we speak. Now, let's see if this. Oh, it is working. Thank goodness for that. So again, this is the only way I can show the chat on the actual feed itself, which I know can be useful for some folks. So again, I'm just going to talk a little bit around the course, how things are going. If anyone has any burning questions, particularly around supervisor allocation, around projects, around ideas, about maybe where to go from this point onwards once you've got your supervisor allocation, maybe we'll talk about that now, actually. So you're all going to have the opportunity to see who your supervisor allocation is. Now, I did this in a 3-stage process. So the first stage was getting your preferences through the Google form, which everyone completed. So thank you very much for doing that. along with a title. Now, there were some instances where I'd spoken to some students about their project ideas, and we'd identified that the supervisor may have not been the best person for that particular project. So hopefully you will see the allocation is now appropriate for the project itself. Similarly, there is high demand for Jane and Sanjoy in particular. And that's simply because you guys are exposed to Jane and Sanjoy in semester 1 quite a lot. So you're going to choose the people that are most familiar with you. So I've tried to do sensible things where there has been a pinch on those particular members of staff, and you'll see that moving forwards. But essentially, what do you do now that you know who that is? Now, hopefully, most of you have already spoken to the supervisor, so it won't be a surprise that you've been allocated to that person. Because the next phase was going to be was that the staff got in touch with me. They saw what selections had been made, and they conferred with me whether they'd had a conversation with you, sort of around the sort of December, January period, to kind of say, yep, chatted with the person about this particular project, and I'm happy to support that type of project moving forward. So again, if you had the opportunity to speak to them, and you went out your way to make sure that you had a chat with them, then excellent. And then the last one was that there were some final students where the immediate allocation wasn't obvious. So I made the best decision for the project that was selected and the student themselves to make sure that the best supervisor has been allocated for the project. So do take the opportunity to have a look once that's released, and we can go from there. But again, all the allocations I've done are with your best interests in hand. And it took quite a bit of time and quite a little bit of juggling about, but I think we've got the best potential solution moving forward. So once you find out who it is, then say hello to them, please, because that's the best way moving forward. Now, I'd made a reference on the in Research Methods for Health Sciences 2 this week about email selection. Now, again, staff members have 2 emails. I don't know why. I think it's ridiculous, but that's fine. I think it's so that staff still have access to all of the Google programs, and you need a Google account to do that. But also we need an institutional email address. It's the institution's email address that you really want to be using for staff members. That's what we're encouraged to use as staff members. And if you're not quite sure what that is for your supervisor, then look up your supervisor on the internet by putting their name in with Westminster at the end of it, and it will take you to their staff page. Their staff page will have the email address that they prefer to use, which will be the institutional one. If you look up your staff member by using the Gmail, it will give you their Gmail account, of which, as I said on Wednesday, most staff don't check it. And as such, you will likely find that they're not responding to you. And it's not because they're ignoring you, it's because they haven't seen the email. So make sure you find out what your supervisor's email is and make sure you use that one consistently moving forwards. So say hello to them, say, I've been allocated to you. The supervisors all know who've been allocated at this point, so it won't be a surprise to them. And I would encourage you to start conversations with them with regards to your project, because the earlier that you start that, the best position you will be in moving ahead for your project. So you can start thinking about, well, what's your project going to look like? Because ultimately you're going to have to do that for your design study anyway. And ultimately you're going to be putting in an ethics application alongside your supervisor. So get involved with them, make sure they know who you are, what you want to be able to do moving forward, so that you're in the best position to make sure that your project has the best chance to do well, is what I would say. So do get involved with your supervisor, let them know, and don't be shy. They know to expect emails from you, so it won't be a surprise for them moving ahead. As I said, most of you, I believe, have already started those types of conversations, which is excellent news. It means your projects are in the best position they can be looking ahead to the data collection period, sort of April onwards, really. Now, I've not been overwhelmed with questions in the chat, which is sometimes a good thing, but sometimes not so good. Sometimes people are a bit shy. Again, if you've got any questions, now is the time to ask them moving ahead. I'm just going to wait a little bit and just see if anyone pops in and has anything to say. It seems I feel like the semester's going well, and I haven't heard too much to counter that. But looking ahead to I mean, we're coming up to week 4. Week 5, we've got another teaching week, and then week 6 is the mid-semester break. And I intend, and the course reps don't know this yet, but I intend to do the same structure as what we did last time, where we get the student reps to take a look at the responses that we'll get on the mid-semester feedback form. And then we'll do a session on SenStream, just following up with that and seeing what changes we can make to ensure that you guys are all settled in. Again, I've been using the feedback form on the module quite comprehensively just to make sure everyone's on the right page. But again, if you've got any issues, you need to let us know so that we can do something about them. If we don't know about the issues, we can't do anything to solve them. And again, sometimes I wish, you know, I was in the WhatsApp group that you guys all have just to see what the actual insight is to the course. A bit of a fly on the wall, if you like, with regards to what you guys actually think. But again, let us know if there's anything we can do to help your studies moving forwards. But I feel like we're having a positive semester so far, which is excellent. And do let me know if we can support you in any other way. Well, no one's butted in on the chat, so I think what we'll do is call it a day there. Again, get in touch with your supervisor once you know who they are. Let's have a look out for some of the updates from the various different modules. In particular, my module, Advanced Performance Nutrition, there's going to be a few bits and pieces for you guys to check out moving forward. So, thank you very much for tuning in once again. It's excellent to see folk in the chat being active. We've got a last minute question. I knew it. Here we go. Let's go back. Vicky, not in work today, but slow on the uptake. Sorry if you've already said this, but when is the DSP and dissertation guide being released? So design study presentation and dissertation guide being released. Let's go back to the slides. 1 second. Just again, the updates that you see in here are direct copy pastes from the emails from the module leaders. You can see here, design study guidelines and dissertation guideline will be available very shortly on Blackboard. I would interpret that as being either by the end of today, which I suspect won't happen because he'll be focusing on the Research Methods for Health Sciences 1 assessment and getting the marks all sorted out. So maybe we should start to see this popping up next week so that you guys can start working on the design study and know what's to be expected there, and also for looking at the dissertation guideline document. So hopefully that answers your question. We've got some more questions coming in now. Maddie, should be this afternoon, Vicky. Yeah, I would hope so, but again, being realistic, I would say more likely to be next week. Dana, sorry, Mike, when did you say that we will know our supervisor is? Will they email us? I will update the course Blackboard sites this afternoon with the supervisor lists on there. Dana, don't worry. No one knows who their supervisor is, so you're not in a unique situation, so that's fine. Vicky, thanks, no worries. Maddie, we should know everything this afternoon. Well, hopefully, yeah. But again, with I will say the design study and dissertation guidelines, I would set your expectations for that being next week. Just looking at what the other demands that need to be met before we look at ahead of that. So hopefully that's okay. I'll keep an eye on the modules just to make sure that you guys have got it moving ahead. But yeah, fear not, we'll keep on top of it. Right, last chance, guys, before I sign it off. Any more questions? Let's go back to the chat. I have to say, it's the part-time year 2 students letting the side down in that regard. But I'm only kidding. But hopefully everything's okay. Any further questions, do post them now. I think one final update I'll give is with regards to ethics, which is kind of just a bit of an insight as to the session next week. So again, we'll be running through the ethics application process. I'm going to try and encourage Sanjoy and Jane to attend this session as well, because all the supervisors, I think, in that matter. But again, a lot of people will be teaching on that particular slot because Wednesdays is busy for most academic staff. But I've also spoken to, so we have a college level ethics committee now, which is different to what it used to be, of which Dr. Tony Madgwick is the School of Life Sciences kind of coordinator for that. So he has the best insight as to the processes and the governance and regulations that we need to attend. So I before the stream today, I popped into Tony's office and just sort of said, you know, this is what our students are looking ahead to, and it'd be good to get some of your insights. So we kind of half agreed that we would do a question answer sort of triage session with regards to ethics applications for students via the SEN stream format in the coming weeks. So he's not available on Fridays, so it'll have to be a standalone session, which again will be recorded, but I'll try and make sure that it's during a time in the day where you guys don't have any other scheduled timetabled sessions, so that you can tune in and get some advice and guidance from Tony. He will be a super helpful guide to your ethics application moving ahead. Now, I would also encourage you all to just have a bit of a chat with your supervisors as to how they envision the ethics applications going in. There's two ways you can do it. You can lead the application, or your supervisor can lead the application from an administrative perspective and have you as co-applicants on the application. It just gives the supervisor a little bit more control over whether they want to continue that research project on once you guys have graduated, which in particular for students that I'll be supervising, that will be the case. I like to keep control of the ethics applications because when you guys have graduated, the last thing that you'd want to do is start doing some admin when you're trying to look for jobs and live your lives outwith of the University of Westminster. So just have a chat with your supervisor what their preference is going to be. And I'll show you how that will, what the differentiation is of that on the session next Wednesday. But it's nothing to, it's just admin, it's just box ticking, but it's something worth pointing out. And similarly, getting Tony in to come and talk to you about some of the niggly aspects about, you know, what to include in your ethics application, maybe some advice on wording and stuff like that will be a super helpful session. But I will obviously let you guys know looking ahead into the semester. No more questions have come in, so I'm definitely going to wrap it up. So just to say once again, thank you very much for tuning in to SENstream. Again, if there's anything you want me to cover specifically looking ahead, let me know via an email. But other than that, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all next Tuesday for Advanced Performance Nutrition. Take it easy, folks. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you next week. Cheers.